r/AskReddit. What is the most lawful evil thing you have witnessed? One of my friends owes almost 50k in student loans that he doesn't remember taking out. The reason he doesn't remember taking them out is because his school, which was a for-profit college that has since closed, convinced him to sign a document when he first enrolled at age 17 which essentially gave them the right to take out loans on his behalf in order to pay his tuition. They didn't really explain to him what the document was, they just got him to sign it amongst a flurry of paperwork. The school then took out several private loans with an exorbitant interest rate, and my friend just started getting letters out of the blue the year after he graduated. When he was in school, whenever these loans would show up on his student portal, they were named a confusing code number, like X4,357,545HFY5 or something like that, and classified as financial aid, so he thought he was getting financial aid. Apparently this has happened to a lot of people, but he was told that there's nothing he can do about it, especially since the school has closed. I'm not sure about the precise legality, but he contacted multiple entities to discuss it and all of them said there's nothing he can do because he signed a contract willingly. This doesn't feel like it should be legal, but the attorneys say that there's nothing they can do. He even spoke to somebody who works for the private loan company. The representative felt really bad for him, helped him drastically reduce his monthly fee to a payable amount, said that the same thing actually happened to her. She owes 10k, and there's nothing she can do about it either. Edit. To clarify, I shouldn't have said he thought he was getting financial aid, because loans are a type of financial aid. What I meant to say is that he thought he was getting education grants. Also, I asked and he said his parents did sign the documents too, but they don't speak or read English. So, while he was at this meeting with a financial representative from the school, he was translating back and forth and very confused about what was going on. It happens all over the world and isn't something you haven't heard about, but it was the one and only time I experienced it personally. I was helping my boyfriend with business in his country. He has a nice shop there and sometimes, when he was busy I'd stay there for a few hours. So, apparently, I got busted and the immigration inspectors showed up. They were rude and wouldn't listen to anything. Neither me nor my boyfriend couldn't convince them that I wasn't an illegal worker. They packed me and took me to an actual prison 120 kilometers away from the city they caught me. It was my first time in that country. I was a legal tourist with a return ticket. I never intended to violate the law and work illegally in the country that I don't even like. I had my departure scheduled. Nevertheless, they held me in prison for a week with the rest of illegal criminals who managed to work without permission for years. The prison authorities distorted my testimony. Every single word in the protocol was a shameless lie. They fed me breakfasts on me getting a payphone card like the rest of the prisoners. Never got one. They wouldn't name the exact date/time of the court. They made me work for the payphone card bonuses. I had to work for bonuses on a non-existent card. They put me in a cell with 8 other women. The bed bugs were eating us every night. My luck was that my boyfriend did everything to get me out of trouble and hired a lawyer which exposed the wrong protocol. Despite the fact I was released and permitted to leave the country on the day I planned, I got a black mark in my passport and couldn't get in for the next year. Me and my boyfriend, now husband, saw each other just 4 times throughout that year. I will never forget the way they talked to Slash about me, the way they saw me, and where I come from. Just my country alone made them treat me like a secondary person. Somebody who can be slandered without any consequence. And what for? A bonus at work for catching another illegal worker. Everything was done for the sake of a plus $100 to their wage. No intention whatsoever to delve into the situation and do their job mindfully. Story time. My dad is basically lawful evil in the best possible way when it comes to getting back at people. So here goes. First, my best friend from elementary school's parents asked my dad to remodel their rotting wraparound porch, then cheated him out of material money. Never do that to a contractor. The material cost is included for a reason. Then refused to move their cars so my dad could move his dump truck that he'd been using to dump their wood in. They claimed it was theirs now because my dad had parked it on their property to do the work for them. So my dad got back at them, since this was a cruddy old rusted out dump truck, by dumping everything toxic he couldn't afford to get rid of into the gas tank of the dump truck, then tossing their containers in the back of the dump truck. He never went on their property to do this. He reached over their neighbors, who he was also doing work for, fence, then just tossed things up and over. Cost them over $3,000 to get rid of because of all the toxic material, more than the value of the dump truck, and about the same as the money they owed him. Second similar incident, he was dating a woman a few years older than me, much to my disgust. Finds out she's cheating on him with her ex, and has been using him this entire time for money he doesn't even have. He waits till she's out sleeping with the guy again, after they've broken up, then takes this diamond grinding stuff. Sorry, I don't know the name of it, but it's an abrasive compound of some kind. And smears it into her engine, every orifice, along the tops of pistons, etc. He then dumps some of it in her gas tank. 3 days later her car dies completely at work, and she calls him freaking out, begging him to fix it. He pretends to look at it, tells her the engine is completely blown, and he can't do anything. To his surprise, she tells him to just keep the car, scrap it out or something, as a thank you for trying to help anyway. He installs a new engine and sells the car. Boom. Surprise profit. Deep breath. I was a teaching assistant for high school children. Primarily, I worked one-on-one with students who had difficulties with most mundane and basic functions of life tests. The program had a heavy complement of job training, where I worked with outside job coaches who were of varying degrees of effectiveness, some really fucking good, some much less good. The students would go to work sites, where they'd learn how to do various skills they might need in the job place. This ranged from putting back returns in the right place, we'd grab a carton of returns, and have the kids put the things back in stores on a regular basis, all the way to delivering mail. Find the right office, deliver the mail to the professors at the college we were volunteering for, etc. One year I suggested the kids volunteer at a cat rescue service based out of a nearby pet store. It turned out that they were totally cool with us doing it, and it let our kids pet some cats. Some of the most distant, gruff ones get friendly with cats, who got clean water, food, and litter boxes, and even got played with a bunch. This was a huge success. The group just takes and rescues where they can, provides resources, etc. I even adopted one of my cats from them, a little lady who now lives with her grandfather after her grandfather got ill and her daddy had to take care of this. She's my dad's cat now, and I miss her sometimes, and have 2 other cats as well. The lady in charge of the program realized that there was another pet store right near the school, and they also were happy to let them do the cleaning up around there. The storefront is kind of nice, and when you step in at first you don't really notice, but the spaces, first of all, way too small. There are 20 or 30 animals in a storefront maybe the size of a McDonald's. I went a few times, figuring maybe I was just overstating it, but no. I saw signs of poor care, not necessarily bad care. Everyone was fed. But, eventually, I don't even remember what it was, so much as knowing it made me angry. I told the head of the job training programs group that I would refuse to go back to that place. Others felt the same way, so we stopped going. The place went out of business very quickly, especially with how demanding this guy was in terms of the price he was trying to sell a dog. TL. Doctor, I saw this as lawful evil, because I saw the difference between a good well enough run operation that cared for animals and a seemingly fly-by-night, subpar facility that didn't really seem to have the resources to care for its charges, and at any rate, expected to sell them for major cash, and their welfare wasn't exactly seen as the store owner's priority when we all talked about it. It really depressed me. I have work in the morning and I'm falling asleep. Blessed be, world. Managers of our small housing estate, grade 2 listed, 12 property converted chapel, decided to rip up all the decorative bushes in front of our house, leaving identical bushes round the mirror side neighbors. Said managers consist of estate property owners, that is neighbors, voted in yearly. It was all done in time for my little brother's birthday, for which we had a sea of mud in front of our house. Said bushes served only us and a couple of other properties. We all wanted to keep them, to maintain the look of the place and our privacy. We fought as hard as we could, getting expert gardener advice against it, poring over house perma-lease papers for loopholes, lawyers, town council, etc, but they came round anyway, with a little digger, and destroyed what was effectively our garden communal by reason of technicalities. The bushes had previously served the dual purpose of 1. Preventing passers-by from hanging out close to the house and peering in our windows, and 2. Preventing passers-by from getting near a steep drop wall. It was also the wrong time of year for planting the grass they replaced them with, which has led a scraggly, somewhat undead existence ever since. This was done with the intention of saving maintenance costs of trimming the bushes a couple times a year. They were replaced with grass, needing mowing weekly or monthly. They also realized, after removing the bushes, that there were an awful lot of kids living in the neighborhood who could run around everywhere now and fall off the steep drop wall. Here in the UK, we'd have liability if someone's idiot offspring should decide to try suicide by parker on our property and there wasn't a blockade or sign. Since then, my mum has managed to get elected as manager and has had to deal with the fallout from that decision, arranging expensive warning signage all over the place and trying to sort replacement bushes for our side of the property to protect our privacy. For all the supposed savings, we have all had to pay for signs, replacement plants. They were even talking about expensive wrought iron fencing a while back, as well as weekly mowing. We suspect that the move was made by disgruntled neighbor managers who wanted to show us who was boss after we raised issues about poor management during a meeting, and by a former handyman who had something against bushes. My son's father used to threaten me all the time, one day even threatening to kill me. I happened to catch up with an old friend during this time. We got on the subject that we had both fallen on hard times recently, and I explained everything my son's father did to me. Friend decided to fight my son's father. Son's father threatened to show up to my house and hurt me, and when the police were notified they basically told me there was nothing that they could do, and that I could end up arrested for sending someone to assault him. When I explained I never said that, and that friend chose to do so on his own, they told me I should probably just not talk about my problems to anyone anymore. And that is how the cycle of abuse begins. While ago one woman had a break-in into her apartment. They were doing some renovation, so the house had scaffolding on the side with balcony. A guy climbs up to her flat through the scaffolding and puts a stocking over his head and ambushes her in her kitchen. She was at that time ironing shirts, so as a terrified woman would do, she whacked the guy with a thing she had at her hand, a hot iron. She managed to hit him over the head and screams her way out of the apartment to get her neighbors up and police. When the police arrived, she got handcuffed and booked in a jail because the would-be robber was unarmed and she caused a burn on his head. She received a sentence and probation only because she was over 60. To be a younger, she would end up in prison. On top of it, she was forced to pay out his medical expenses and pain injury. Maybe the liberal judge thought she should serve the robber tea and cookies while he is cleaning her house of valuables. Now, try defending your life and property with such laws and justice system. My friend's uncle pulled a knife on me during an argument. She lived in the house that she shared with her friend, who had lived in the house previous and received 2 warnings previously, with the third meaning eviction. This was for noise complaints from her friend's parties made by the very uptight neighbors, Silicon Valley, although I'm sure she deserved it. He pulled the knife on me and then threw punches at my boyfriend, who stepped between us. We called the cops and they sent around 8 cop cars and used the speaker and lights to demand him to come outside. He came outside a bit later. Before they were going to send in people to forcibly remove him, he was arrested. She then got an eviction the next week for the disruption. They were already in the process to evict the uncle, who was to be evicted the same next week, and then he killed himself that week, and she had to both grieve and find a new place to stay. It was awful. Edit to say, the landlord is evil, not the uncle. He was sick, and it's really sad to look back and think of all the signs we missed. But fuck that landlord, and fuck those neighbors. A little late, so this will get buried probably, but anyway, my dad had been given full custody of me from when I was around 6 to 11 after my mom had essentially kidnapped me and moved me from Arizona to Washington. My mom would fly to us once or twice a year throughout that time to visit. During the whole 5 years of my dad having custody, she never once paid more than $150 a month in child support. In 5th grade I asked my dad if I could move back with my mom and see how I liked it. He allowed it because it's what I wanted. So, I moved and lived there from 6th grade throughout high school. When I lived there, my mom and her piece of shit lawyer went after my dad for more child support and got it to him having to pay around $900 a month. He didn't have a great job at the time, so he moved in with his mom so he could pay the child support every month. Then he lost his job, so he wasn't able to pay. After a couple of months of him not being able to make the full payments, my mom went after him and had him sent to jail. She refused to tell me what happened when I wasn't able to get a hold of him for a few days, and I found out from my uncle that no one in my family is really close with. She lied to me about the entire thing, and I found out because I found the court paperwork. She would also tell me that, while my dad had custody, her and her husband spent upwards of $250k to get custody of me, even though I was the one that asked to move to live with her. One day her lawyer called, and she had me answer the phone not knowing who it was. After saying hello he responded with, "Spencer, how's it going? How did your dad like being in jail? I bet he'll be sure to make the full payment now." That obviously pissed me off pretty heavily, so I had a shit ton of glitter sent to him at his office, addressed from me, so he knew who it came from. I made sure to answer the next call from him and said, "Hi Craig, how did you like the glitter? Were you able to clean it all up?" Needless to say he was pissed, and my mom wasn't too happy. I got grounded, but it was totally worth it. So yeah, even though I really do love my mom more than anything, and she has done a whole lot for me, she was kind of an evil cunt at the time. By the end of 2014, America will have been charged about $400 billion by the local phone incumbents, Verizon, AT&T and CenturyLink, for a fiber optic future that never showed up. And though it varies by state, counting the taxes, fees and surcharges that you have paid every month, many of these fees are actually revenues to the company or taxes on the company that you paid. It comes to about $4,000 to $5,000 per household from 1992 to 2014, and that's the low number. You were also charged about 9 times to wire the schools and libraries via state and federal plans designed to help the phone and cable companies. And if that doesn't bother you, by year end of 2010, and based on the commitments made by the phone companies and their press statements, filings on the state and federal level, and the state-based "alternative regulation plans" that were put in place to charge you for broadband upgrades of the telephone company wire in your home, business, as well as the schools and libraries. America should have been the world's first fully fibered, leading-edge broadband nation. In fact, in 1992, the speed of broadband, as detailed in state laws, was 45 megabits per second in both directions. By 2014, all of us should have been enjoying gigabit speeds, 1000 megabits per second. Instead, America is not number 1 or 2 or 5 or even 10th in the world in broadband. As of Monday, September 15th, 2014, one of the standard testing companies of the speed of broadband worldwide, NetIndex by Ookla, pegged America at 25th in the world in download speeds and 40th in upload speeds. Though this accounting varies daily, America's download speeds are never in the top 20 countries. And it's so much worse than even that. The best defense I've heard for any of this, and the go-to for most apologists of this happening, use the argument, well, the government didn't define the terms of the agreements with the broadband companies well enough. Great argument. I'm going to go beat a guy up and steal his money, then tell the cops he looked weak, so it was his fault. But if there are any non-deflecting arguments to why the telecom companies did nothing wrong here, I would love to hear them. Hospital doctor, drunk/unhinged, botched a routine surgery on an infant. Child will forever be dependent on family and public benefits. Is a complete vegetable. Hospital's insurance and highbrow attorneys destroyed any chance of the family of 5 immigrants receiving anything. Mom is slowly working herself to death. Dad has lost everything, and their other children suffer like no child I've ever known. I think of them often. I believe the doctor went to rehab and is back practicing. Edit. Anything substantial They received some, but it won't last long. 5 years to the average American, maybe 10 for this family. After attorney fees it's pretty minimal. Edit 2, just so we can have some positive outlook. Child is loved and well cared for by family. Mother is toughest lady I know. They're working on getting some tools to help out, but the parents are adamant to not spend the money. Parents like this don't come around often. Something similar happened in Texas. Routine neck surgery left the guy with the mental and physical abilities of a 2-year-old. Family got a ton of money, but this doc had botched a couple of prior surgeries because he was high while operating. The board of the hospital knew about it and did nothing. The medical licensing board gave him a light slap on the hand after that, but nothing for the prior screw-ups. To add to the grief though, several docs set up a reference site with the names of people who had won med mal settlements, and this guy was on it. He kept getting turned away for treatment after that. They eventually had to take the site down. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the channel.